Hello and welcome back to Module 2, where we will study market opportunity selection. Now, what we're going to do is to explore new market opportunity selection by using a practical case study. In other words, how do we enter these new markets if we found that they are attractive? Our objectives will be firstly to look at a market opportunity question, which will come in the form of a brief. Then we will explore some reporting and analysis elements of a specific case study. And then finally we will discuss the preparations we need to be making to enter a new market. Now, before we continue, I would recommend either before or this session, if you could read through the luxury market report which we have attached. This is a report pertaining to China, so it's attached to the Udemy module, and it will help you to gain full insight. Now, let's look at a research question, and this is fictitious. As a marketing consultant, you receive a brief from the Italian luxury owner of a luxury brand. They're based in Italy. They are very similar to Prada. I assume you know about the Prada brand, or you could perhaps compare this to Gucci. Now, they consult your advice on entering the Chinese market, and they're specifically asking you two questions right now. They want to know, firstly, they want to know, does a suitable opportunity exist in China? And secondly, they would like to know, if an opportunity exists, how can they best enter the market? So now we're going to share some extracts from the luxury market report for China to see how to best answer the brief. Now, the report found very early on in our research that the Chinese market is quite different to perhaps other markets. Thought leaders argue that whilst the market research is reliable in mature markets such as the US or perhaps the UK or Europe, statistics about Chinese consumers are neither complete nor accurate. And in fact, this was to some extent confirmed where Glenn Murphy from AC Nielsen stated that there is no case for successful data collection and data usage in China. Now, this is an international opportunity. We're not going to fall at the first hurdle, but we're of course going to continue to explore this option. We see that, on the other hand, first mover disadvantage can be exploited by late entrants who learn significantly from earlier entrants. In other words, if there's already other brands in China, we can learn from their mistakes. If we cannot find primary data in China, then what we can still do is access secondary data from US or European companies operating in the country. And as you're going to see later on, there are several. Of course, research companies such as AC Nielsen have other wonderful ways of helping us if we're prepared to buy the information that we would need. Now, moving on with our report, looking at what else we've discovered, we learn that one report suggests that by 2015, which is now already, China will account for 20% or in the $27 billion worth of the global luxury sales in total. It also suggests, the same report, that significant growth is projected for both the upper middle class and the very wealthy. This information is indicative of an opportunity, and this is potentially good news for our client in Italy. Now, it is also useful to consider recent data so that we can understand what has already been happening in that market. In this particular case, we found that China maintained a phenomenal growth and scale advantage over other markets, which is indeed a strong indicator. Next, we're going to consider some historic data in order to continue exploiting our first mover disadvantage. By tracking the early movers, we're looking here at data pertaining to Omega, Burberry and Gucci. We learned that these stores respectively owned 106, 62 and 58 stores respectively throughout China. Perhaps to our surprise, it transpires that their Chinese stores have been 10 to 15% more profitable than their European stores. This is interesting because notwithstanding the fact that taxes are so high in China, they've nevertheless been able to be more profitable than they are in Europe. Research also tells us that Hermes experiences its largest margin in that region. We just established another strong indicator. We've established that there is a sign of low competition and strong demand in China. At this point in time, with so many strong indicators present, it's really worth carrying out more research. So what we do is we continue the research, and we've now also established that the Chinese market surpassed that of Japan and is now the second highest count. It has the second highest count of independent luxury retail outlets in the world. In other words, the only leader ahead of China right now would be the USA. Another great method of conducting this research is to compare or to conduct a like-for-like comparison with other segments or other industries in the same host country. In other words, we'll go to China and we'll say, in this particular case, we said we're going to compare the luxury car market with the luxury fashion brand market. And in particularly, we're going to count the amount of outlets there are for cars, in other words, luxury car dealerships, and we're going to compare that to the amount of mono-brand luxury fashion stores. Very interesting, we found that there is 150 outlets for luxury motor cars, but only 37 outlets for mono-brand luxury stores. Now this is very interesting because in addition to the other research findings that we have, we've certainly now concluded that there is a very suitable opportunity in China, and we may indeed now proceed to the next step, which should be to look at the selection of an entry strategy. Now, when we are preparing to manage new markets, there are several other factors to take into account. This report is by no means exhaustive of what we need to do. We have a decision to be made in regards to product policy. We've got pricing, we've got distribution, we've got advertising, we've got sales promotion, and we've got the sales force to consider, all of which will be discussed in a later module. I hope that you enjoyed this module. I would like you to pause and reflect on this, perhaps have another look at the report we've prepared for the luxury market in China, and see what you think about it.